The Federal Reserve's emergency action to lower interest rates to near 0%, the first time since 2008, by the way, did nothing to prevent yet another Wall Street plunge today. So this story has been updated since we produced it. The numbers are actually even worse than what I'm about to explain, but the Dow Jones Industrial Average sank by 2,200 points at the opening bell. By the way, as we film this video right now, it sank to 3,000 points, with the S&P 500 and the tech-heavy Nasdaq falling by around 8% each, triggering a circuit breaker. This is now the third circuit breaker that halts all trading on the exchange floor for 15 minutes. So the Dow has fallen nearly 6,400 points since its record high on February 12th, and the chaos came just over 12 hours after the Federal Reserve unleashed a series of crisis response measures, slashing rates to almost zero, injecting cash into treasuries, and announcing coordinated efforts with central banks across the world to ensure liquidity as the coronavirus pandemic takes a hold on the global economy. Now, I'm going to, go into this in an easier way to understand in just a minute, but before I do, I want to go to this video of the President of the United States during his press conference yesterday. This is during the Coronavirus Task Force press conference. It's meant to ease nerves, let people know what the government is doing to help them economically, but more importantly, what the government is doing to help them prevent the spread of the coronavirus. He opens it with this juvenile monologue about the Federal Reserve. Take a look.
For starters, they've lowered the Fed rate from what it was, which was 1 to 1.25, and it's been lowered down to 0 to 0.25 or 0.25. So it's 0 to 0.25. That's a big difference. It's quite a bit, about a point. And in addition, very importantly, the Federal Reserve is going to be purchasing $500 billion of treasuries and $200 billion of mortgage-backed securities, and that number can increase. But they're going to start with that, and that's really good news. It's really great for our country. It's something that we're very happy. I have to say this, I'm very happy. And they did it in one step. They didn't do it in 4 steps over a long period of time. They did it in one step, and I think that people in the market should be very thrilled, and that brings us, we're the strongest country in the world by far, financially and every other way.
So that was how the press conference began yesterday, and I couldn't help but notice the facial expressions of everyone surrounding Donald Trump as he's talking about the importance of the Fed rate, especially because it's had really no positive impact at this point on the stock market, and that shouldn't be the opener. The stock market shouldn't be the #1 priority in your press conference when people are really worried about their health, worried about what this means for their families, for their jobs.
Yeah, okay, so before we went into that, you were saying it has to be an easy way to understand it for folks who may not know, right? So if you start your press conference when you're talking about the health and the status of our response to this pandemic, then people may tune in looking for some answers that would affect them. I get there's tons of people that are affected by what's going on in the stock market. So I think I've underplayed that a bit in the past when I say only these top people actually care or know it has a big effect on their lives. It has an effect on a lot of people's lives. But even the people who are like, middle class folks who have some stake in the stock market when it comes to things like your retirement and things like that, or just general investments you have on a smaller scale, yes, that means something, but it doesn't mean anything if you're dead. So we see who he's addressing first because those are the most important to him. We see the type of person he is. It's been that way since the beginning. We're not worried about containing or testing or finding a way to limit this spread. We're finding a way to make sure that we still have enough liquidity and money going to the right people that we need it going to. So that's where his interest is. And he said, we're still the best in the world among this and everything else. That's his focus. He never not plays his card, never doesn't play his cards right out in front of you. If you want to play poker, play it with Donald Trump. He'll tell you what he's got. When he's got a bad hand, he'll tell you. So check this out. It's a pretty good hand, right? So this is how he approaches things, and we've seen it over and over again. So I get you're trying to do something you think is good news to start with, but his cluelessness and departure from reality and real Americans really shows here.
But like, yeah, he can't say everything about the crisis at once. He can't. I know that like that's part of a press conference, and in that press conference he also, and in other press conferences he's mentioned, I want to keep people safe. But when you like take the temperature of how often he should probably be saying I want people to be safe and I want people to be healthy, he stumbles through that and he's not doing it enough, and it doesn't read as that's what's important. This is important to him. He is the business president. Everyone who for hundreds and hundreds of years has said, boy, we need a businessman in charge, and it's always a man. We need a businessman in charge. We need to see what happens if we run this company like a business. Now that, and Donald Trump was that guy.
Right.
And he should know how to talk about this stuff.
Totally, I know, like, the way that he was just simply trying to communicate what the Federal Reserve lowered the interest rate to. Yeah. It was as if he doesn't know how to communicate these things at all. So near 0%, 0.25%, that's 0.2. What are you talking about right now? We want to know what the government is doing when it comes to our overburdened, stressed healthcare system, right?
Yeah.
Are we doing enough to stop the spread of coronavirus in order to prevent the healthcare system from being so overwhelmed and overburdened that they literally have to make decisions about who they can and cannot treat? Right? We have a shortage of medical supplies, whether it's gloves, face masks, respirators. I'm sure you guys have seen those stories. People want those issues to be addressed front and center. And he opened that press conference with this news of what the Federal Reserve did. And honestly, the Federal Reserve has exhausted their measures when it comes to stimulating the economy. And most people expected this outcome of not really helping, because we're having an issue with the supply side, right? Everything's shut down. So if everything's shut down, people aren't able to go to work, people aren't able to go out and buy things. There aren't products that are being produced worldwide because everything is shut down. The Federal Reserve lowering interest rates is gonna do nothing to solve that.
Well, in the history of American economics, when you lower interest rates, then there's more money flowing around and people are able to do more stuff with it. And people have said, ever since 2008, when we went to zero, we've slowly raised the interest rate, but it's been, and you heard them use the term near zero for years and years and years. Near zero is not zero. Now it's at zero. So it was always like, listen, everybody's got their, like I went out to the gas station and bought me some Spam and like some vittles, and I've got a mound on my table about this high, and I can probably eat my way through it and feel pretty confident if I have a little bit left. But when I take that last Slim Jim out and I look down and I got nothing left, then I'm gonna panic.
Right.
And that's what the market is doing because they know it's not over yet. And they're looking at their supply of interest rate cuts and it's down to literally zero.
Right. Yeah, so that's one of the key parts of this article that stuck out to me. That's one of their main things that they use when you want to cut it to this low. So the main thing you use when you have an economy that's tumbling into a recession, I think you guys already pointed out. So now there's no more options left. And I love that analogy because sometimes it needs to be put in those terms where people see things in real life situations like this, where they can see, man, this is the dire strait they're at. Now, also on top of that, let's not forget, I'm not sure if anyone else has forgotten this part. He's been demanding, begging, threatening the Fed for months, if not a year, to drop things to zero.
He goes after Jerome Powell hard, yes.
Hard. They did it during the Obama administration. Why did they do it during the Obama administration? For different reasons than just saving your backside from embarrassment of the way you're running the country. So there's part of his giddiness. He's like, finally. So I've been asking for. He probably thinks in the back of his mind, the coronavirus came around, it's spreading across, everyone's in a panic. Now we can finally get those Fed rates where I wanted so it can help me out. Little did he know that wasn't gonna work.
Yeah, what's amazing is, okay, so he's only concerned about looking good for re-election, and what has he constantly cited as the economy doing well? The stock market. So once the stock market plunges, it hurts Trump in two ways. First of all, his own personal wealth, right? And I'm sure he's got money in the stock market, but more importantly, he's got a lot of debt. So lower interest rates mean that it's going to be a little easier for him to service that debt. But he's worried about re-election. And one other thing I wanted to add to this is, look, what's happening right now with the economy is bad, don't get me wrong. But what this means for the future is far worse, because keep in mind that one of the biggest issues with corporations is that they're over leveraged, right? And what the Federal Reserve just did wasn't just lower interest rates. Banks don't need minimum reserves, meaning liquidity, money, cash, minimum reserves anymore in order to borrow more money. Terrifying.
Yep.
Terrifying.
That's been they've developed these protections over time because that was happening before.
Exactly.
They used to say you have to have $10 in the bank to borrow $100. Now it's like, nah, here you go.
That's for banks.
Yeah.
Right?
And they're gonna protect themselves. That's the only thing.
I was gonna say, so you think about banks have that, right? I want you guys to go out. I mean, don't go out, but imagine this scenario, because you've been out before. Don't go out, run around the businesses, but go out and try to buy a car. Go out and try and
with no money.
With no money,
right? You want
go
a
to
car loan.
dealer. Yep. Go to a Mercedes dealership. When the guy runs up on you before you get out of your car, when you just pull up in the front and there's 3 salesmen at the front of your car going.
Yeah.
And you get out and they say, what can I help you out with today, man? It's a slow day, what's going on? What are you looking for? What do you need? What do you need? And you go, I'm looking for your most expensive SUV that's probably $150,000 and I don't have any money. Lost my job, I don't have any money, and you know what? I'm not worth much of anything else either.
And I have a lot of debt.
Yeah,
I already
and I've
have
got
a lot
tons
of debt. That's
and
what
you
our
go, show me,
companies are
I'd like to
currently
test drive it. No, Jeeves. You know what they'll say to you? Get the F off of my lot.
But you know what? Honestly, that's the responsible way of doing it, right? You don't give loans to people who don't have any cash, who have a ton of debt. That's why you have credit scores. Think about it in the context, though, of these massive corporations that are already over leveraged, and we're doing away with any of the requirements necessary to determine whether or not they should take on more debt.
Just about your metaphor of like people trying to buy cars, like the government should step in for people who have bad credit scores to try to build that up.
Right.
And that should be the way we're looking at it now, like mom and pop shops and people that are trying to struggle to stay afloat. But the instinct of the government till now has not been that. The instinct of the government is like, yeah, let's take care of the big boys. And that's what's so frustrating to me.
So one final part of this story that I want to make sure we get to. After the Federal Reserve cut the interest rates, there was a little tiny spike in the stock market. And Trump was so proud of that spike that apparently he sent autographed charts of the stock market out.
Yeah, we have photos.
So there's an example of it. So at the very end, you see like a little bit of a, let's go to the next graphic.
It's a big tick.
Yeah, see that little tick at the very end? That's what Trump was real proud about. And that's why he gave out autographed copies of what the stock market was.
Yeah, I tweeted out a little video where he's like, it's the biggest spike we've ever had in the stock market, record spike in the stock market. And that's, his tone deafness is deafening. He's absolutely trying to convince you that you should be over the moon with this. And I get it, he's a BS artist. But as we learn from how he describes what's happening in the economy, how he tries to communicate the efforts taken by the economists who know more than him, he knows nothing. You know nothing, Don Slow.
There's a reason why he ran casinos into the ground. He doesn't know how it works. He's like the guy who goes to Vegas. I got these friends, they go to Vegas and they'll spend $5,000 and lose it all. And then on the last day, they win big and win $500 and they go, I'm back home, I got 500. I said, bro, you lost 4,500 overall. Do you not know how this works? You had this much money in your wallet. You came here and now you got 500 left. I think you end up upside down on this.
Right.
But you need to, but that's why TYT is so important, because for years and years we've been talking about how the big businesses run themselves and how they're the true beneficiaries of socialism. They're the ones that get the big handout.
Yes.
Donald Trump, this is proof. There's an op-ed in the LA Times or in the New York Times about the airline industry, and you can say what you want about the rest of it, but it gives you some stats about in the time when the airline industry is making record profits. And I'm talking in 2006, they were making like $500 million in profit. And now they're making $7.6 billion in profit. Jeez. They're the first one to say, hey, I'm in trouble, give me a handout. 100%. When in the meantime, they were doing what? Stuff you've heard on this show millions and millions of times, stock buybacks.
Exactly.
That's literally what they were doing.
Yes.
And they aren't passing it on to their employees. In this experience with coronavirus, I know flight attendants who have said that when the flight attendants want to put gloves on to protect themselves, the airlines are like, no, we don't want to freak people out.
Too late.
They prioritize the way people are feeling. Guess what? Those people are already freaked out over the health and safety of their employees. This is how the economy works. We've been saying it for months and months and years. And this is where it bears out. The stock buyback programs that they underwent, instead of doing what they should have done, and instead of Trump honoring the Federal Reserve as we have this 12 years of unprecedented growth, saying it is time to raise the interest rates. We need some runway in case this unprecedented 12 years ends. We need to be making more arrows. We need to be buying more Slim Jims to put on the table. But they didn't do it, and now they're like, oh my gosh, it seems like I need another bailout.
Who could have seen it coming? Last thing, Anna, I know we've been filibustering you on this, but there was a part, this is an NPR article. They point out part of the problem with the stock market is that how many cities are shutting down. We know cities are shutting down restaurants and movie theaters and entertainment venues across the country. Part of that is affecting the stock market. Makes sense, right? These are businesses that are having problems. So because of that, if you think about it, people aren't going to work. Maybe your waitresses, your delivery drivers, whatever. They're having issues with their job and their work situation. They're losing out, so therefore the stock market is. This is it illustrates the moment so much that the stock market needs workers, right? They need people to work in these businesses, to prop up these businesses, and consumers to do it so they can make it happen. When they're not there, the stock market suffers. Why is it that we're always helping out the stock market in a way, but we're obviously just working, but that's helping them out. But when it comes the other way, that never works this way. As you mentioned, they hoard all this and bring it back in when it's something that can be actually given to your employees and make for a much more robust economy. But instead, we'll keep it to ourselves, and when workers have a problem because of something like this, we're screwed being the stock market, and we just don't know how this could have happened.
Right.
It's a one-way street when it comes to things that are benefiting the other, and that's what it's always been.
You're so right. There's no congressional debate about whether or not the Fed should do something to help like stimulate the markets, right? There was no debate about that. Whereas when it comes to the average American worker and what's going to be done for them when it comes to paid time off, there's the debate, there's the concession to what Republicans want, which is a giant loophole for massive corporations, so they don't have to pay sick paid time off, all of that.
Thanks for watching The Young Turks, really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, Jayar, so those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.